Aliens found buried in Mexico. Oh, how the turntables have turned. What do you call aliens illegally hiding in Mexico? So here's where I'm at. Alleged non-human corpses have been displayed to Mexican politicians in a congressional hearing this past September 12th, 2023. These small, creepy creatures look like a mummified version of our stereotypical concept of what we think aliens look like. The two small alleged alien corpses were retrieved from Cusco, Peru, and they were presented in window boxes in Mexico City this past week, stirring excitement within the UFO conspiracy community. The event was spearheaded by journalist and UFOologist, I cannot believe that's actually a term, Jamie Masson, who testified under oath that the mummified specimens are not part of our terrestrial evolution, with almost a third of their DNA remaining unknown, reported by Mexican media. The claims by the self-UFOologist have not been proven, and Mr. Masson has previously been associated with claims of discoveries that have later been debunked. Now, of course, this has created quite the media stir nonetheless, because these images of these alleged aliens look quite compelling, as again, they mimic our understandings of what an alien would look like, and they don't seem too far-fetched. Additionally, at a public hearing, Mr. Masson showed U.S. officials and members of the Mexican government several videos of UFOs and unidentified anomalous phenomena before unveiling the alleged alien corpses. He said, "The specimen are not part of our terrestrial evolution. These are not beings that were found after a UFO wreckage. They were found in a diatom, algae mines, and were later fossilized." Mr. Masson told attendees the specimens had been studied by scientists at the Autonomous National University of Mexico, UNAM, who were able to draw DNA evidence using radiocarbon dating after comparisons were made to other DNA samples. It was found that 30% of the specimen's DNA was unknown, he said. X-rays of the specimen were also shown during the hearing, with experts testifying under oath that one of the bodies is seen to have had eggs inside them, while both were said to have implants made of very rare metals such as osmium. So you're telling me even in aliens you were able to find a male and a female? Both have Bill Gates' chip in it, apparently. Oh, I'm sorry, osmium. Ryan Graves, Americans for Safe Aerospace Executive Director and former U.S. Navy pilot, was in attendance, having earlier this year told U.S. Congress of the threat that unidentified aerial phenomena pose to U.S. national security. If you're unfamiliar with the story, this past July, for the first time ever, we have had government officials testifying in front of our Congress, admitting that there are some type of extraterrestrial phenomena out there that we cannot explain, whether that's a country that has technology that we just cannot match and they're not taking claim to it, or there is some sort of other entities out there with higher technology than our own. That congressional testimony, however, has created quite the interesting conundrum in our society. For the longest time, you had so many people thoroughly convinced that UFOs and aliens were real. And oddly enough, maybe it's a symptom to our distrust for our government, but the fact that the moment they start saying, yeah, no, they're kind of real, we take a step back and we're like, whoa, 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 then why were you lying to us for so long? And now I don't believe you. You got conspiracy theorists out here believing that they're setting us up for their next psyop, that they're going to fake an alien invasion, and that's why they're now breaking the dam. But you also got to be curious, maybe it's that they have to acknowledge it, that it's becoming so unavoidable and in our face that they have to acknowledge it, because with everybody having a camera in their hand, it's going to be increasingly more difficult to hide. And let's discuss why a government or state actor would be incentivized to hide that from you to begin with. The reality is this: people are weak, at least en masse, and that results in us having to try to yes, it's survival of the fittest, but once you get tribes and more civilized, you want to make it survival of even the unfit. And as a result, you have people in the society, and it's becoming an increasing number of the population, that can't handle the stress or concept of aliens and things outside and beyond us. Anecdotal story. There was a friend back from college, and she couldn't handle aliens. It scares her. It haunts her. And we were sitting around a campfire. It was just a group of friends, and we're looking up at the stars. And I go, hey, you guys want to hear something crazy? And they're like, yeah. I go, if an alien had a telescope 1,000,000 light years away, and she goes, stop, Alex, I don't like aliens, don't. And I go, I promise you can handle this. This isn't going to scare you. This isn't intense. Just let me roll. So I continue, and I go, so if you had a telescope 1,000,000 light years away, and an alien was watching us, they would see dinosaurs roaming the earth because the light took 1,000,000 years to get to that telescope for that to hit their retinas. And so even though we're on this earth, they'd be seeing the light of 1,000,000 years ago. Before I could even get through the statement, oh, no. And she starts crying and, I can't handle this and blah, 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 blah. So what am I getting at here? People are weak. And so a long time ago, it would make sense at least that a state actor would come to the conclusion that most people can't handle the actualization that we are not the top of the food chain and there's stuff out there beyond us. And so we have to kind of hide it. Now, if that's a fact, how do you get people used to and comfortable with the things that stress them and make them uncomfortable? Well, you start making movies, you make TV shows. Remember that movie Paul with Seth Rogen? I mean, you've got like a alien that becomes buddy with everybody's favorite stoner. I mean, once you start socializing it more, and now astronomy and everything else is so prevalent in our public school system, kids, it's not such a foreign concept for things to be roaming on Mars or beyond. But let's not just stop the curious imagination there. We should bridge this to another interesting concept. Consider the Hobbit people from the island of Flores. The discovery of Homo florensis on a remote Indonesian island changed things dramatically. A replica of a small female Homo florensis skeleton was discovered on Flores Island in Indonesia in 2003. It currently has that replica on display in a museum here, but it's been nicknamed the Hobbit because this tiny human species hasn't been found anywhere else. Homo florensis has been said to be a relative of Homo erectus, similar to us, an offshoot of a far more ancient human ancestor, or even a diseased population of modern humans. The ancient human species lived on the remote island of Flores in Indonesia. All of the fossils unearthed to date were found in a huge cave called Liang Bua, which means cool cave. Some much older finds have been made at the site of Maramang, about 70 kilometers further east on the island. Experts think these hominins may be related to the Homo florensis population found at the Liang Bua. What's interesting about these considerations is take a look at them. They're small people. Now, does that mean that they were either another species and they got conquered, they died off, they were isolated on an island, so who knows, maybe because of dietary restrictions or some other fallout, disease, they were all caused to extinction. But there's an interesting concept here that our total understanding of the human species is not totally known. And again, those with the tinfoil hats, some consider the possibility that us as human beings are some sort of genetic mutt manipulated from other species and maybe alien DNA. That being the case, that would explain why there's different genetic offshoots of humans. And again, keep in mind those stories from like the early 1800s when the Smithsonian was going around and collecting giants' bones from farmers that were finding them as they unearthed for agriculture. But that's just conspiracy. I'm curious. Please head to the comments. When you take a look at all these different photos, what do you make of this? It's interesting that back-to-back within about a 2-month span, the United States and Mexico both shared a congressional meeting exclaiming the existence of aliens and how little we know about these extraterrestrial phenomena. And again, Ryan Graves from our congressional hearing here in the United States was there at the Mexico City congressional hearing in solidarity supporting these exclamations. Then in conclusion, so here's where I'm at. I don't know what to believe anymore, man. Everybody's been lying to us. Nothing seems to be real. Nothing seems to be true. It seems very convenient that you start wanting to be honest about aliens when you need to redirect us from your president's son smoking crack or the $400 billion you're giving to another country that comes from our paychecks. But that's neither here nor there. In direct response to whatever these things are, I don't know what to make of it. And it's really convenient when you make them these big sacred beings. Look, I found an artifact, and now you must preserve it and protect it. Conveniently, that prevents any other scientist from being able to experiment and corroborate whatever your claims are. How do I know that that alien has eggs if we can't allow a couple other scientists to get in there and corroborate what your claims are? At the same time, this is pretty convincing, and my dad would always say, oh, if these things were so real, all these conspiracies, why wouldn't somebody come out and say it? Well, oddly enough, when somebody does come out and say it and they're screaming it in our face, we go, you're full of nonsense. So, I don't know. Maybe as these stories continue to pile up, the likelihood of the reality of them also increases, but without corroboration, I don't know what to make of it, especially if this guy's got a history of being a clown. Wah, wah. Let me know what you think. Drop down in the comments. Anyway, guys, we'll catch you on the next one. So here's where I'm at.